What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Retro Hoop Collectibles. Let's. There we go. A little bit more. So this is the episode where I'm going to kind of go over a couple of the things that I saw on what was on the Reddit AMA from a previous PSA employee. There really wasn't a whole lot of discussion on the AMA, but there was some key points there that I felt were really interesting that I wanted to really touch on. But before we get into all that, PSA fanboys, get your boy. I mean, get your boy. I think this is quite possibly the most hilarious tweet to come from that specific person. I mean, he literally stands there and calls Panini lazy and complacent. And I just, when I saw this, I was like, there's just no way that that's real. And it's real. I went to the actual Twitter and looked it up. Nat Turner calling Panini lazy and complacent and unimaginative. I know he's a collector. Like he's been a collector. He's a long-time collector. Obviously now the owner or the CEO of PSA. But I mean, you know, somebody has to be on top of his tweets like this, because this is just silly. The fact that he tweeted this out, I thought was hilarious. So, I will try to find the actual Reddit link to the Reddit AMA, but what I did, just for the sake of like not losing kind of my captures and stuff like that, I just went ahead and snapshotted a couple of things that I saw that were of note as I read through the AMA. And I'll try to find the link, and if I can, I'll post it on here. If not, these are kind of the highlights that I took from it. The user since deleted his name or her name or whatever, but the first one was, so just as you guys can see this, or you can read along with this, is it true that PSA puts more emphasis on corners than surface, edges, etc. when grading? Even though there are no subgrades on the final product, this one was interesting. Is there a record of those internally? Is it true that every card is looked at by at least two graders? And is there a difference in quality, thoroughness, final grade, etc. if the card is graded at a show versus sending it in as usual? So he says, so this is the response from the PSA employee. Corners matter. I couldn't tell you if they matter more. I couldn't tell you, but I could tell you a card with damaged corners will not do well on a grader's desk. I agree with that. I mean, I think that's something that like you can see right away, so it'd be kind of hard to miss. I've got to check on the whole record of subgrades, but I want to say no, there's just no feasible way to manage that much data. Plus, graders don't see customer information. And then the last one, which was in regards to, is the every card looked at by two graders. Absolutely true. Sometimes more if it's contentious. So I guess they have like multiple. I mean, we all know that they have multiple graders looking at cards, but apparently there can be more if there's some ambiguity to it. And then the last question: is there any difference in quality, thoroughness, and final grade if the card is graded at a show versus sending it in as usual? And he says, I couldn't tell you. I'll pass that one on to a buddy in grading and get back to you. So the one that I thought was interesting there was the corners, where they asked, is there any one particular one particular graded attribute that's worth more than the other ones? And he said right off the bat, corners definitely matter. If you got bad corners, you're not gonna do well. Let me see. This one here was the other one. I thought this one was funny. Grading is so subjective. If a grader got before grading or is having a bad day, would it impact grading? And he said not so much that. He said more a joint. There's 3 dispensaries around the corner from the office. So this guy seems to think that the dispensaries that are around the corner from PSA have more of an impact on your grades than anything else. which, knowing that fact alone is pretty damning. Not damning, but, it's kind of one of those, that makes sense, right? Because I can see where sometimes I've looked at some cards and was like, you had to have been high to give it the grade that it's gotten. So the fact there's three dispensaries right around the corner is an interesting one. This one was interesting also. Having some institutional knowledge, do you feel that PSA will continue to be a leader in card grading, or do you think that there's a chance with all the issues that PSA has had over the last few years that its market share could slip to someone like SGC? I've seen a lot more SGC slabs recently since PSA closed down, and I've got to say, SGC seems to be running much more smoothly, and their slabs are nice. I agree. SGC tends to be running a lot smoother. However, I will say that SGC does not have nowhere near the volume that PSA has. So I'll say that for them. But his or her response was, I definitely could see PSA losing ground to SGC. Hell, I even see them losing ground to Beckett too, and in all the other smaller grading services who are primed and ready to gobble up this lost business. It's frustrating as someone who was so team PSA while I was there. The folks at the top need to get it together. So that was the response there on that one. And then the other one, we can close that one out. This one was the one where I kind of felt like he put a little bit more thought into the response. Is the success of PSA at this point just brand recognition? Or is there something fundamentally different that they do that makes it impossible to be replicated? For example, do you feel that you could create a company that does exactly what PSA does without that recognition? A lot of folks poo-poo on the new startups, and I'm wondering if their service aligns well with what PSA does. His or her response was, I have to be honest here, I think reputation and brand recognition is what's carrying PSA here. They're definitely great at what they do, don't get me wrong, but the folks at the top are running it into the ground. The last year saw an acquisition, a massive investment, and a resignation of the CEO. What they have to show for it was a rapidly expanded receiving department that was nearly entirely eliminated. Hundreds of thousands of packages received daily at one point, but the bottleneck is research. So rather than hire more researchers, they closed the service levels and jacked up prices to try to lessen the flow. What ended up happening was the bulk of the receiving departments scraped stickers off plastic boxes for months before being collectively laid off. This means that when the service levels do open up again, they won't have a department of experienced receivers and unboxers ready to go. They'll have an inexperienced new hires who will bungle order information and damaged cards. I personally love to see some of the new startups gaining ground over PSA because the way it's being managed now is really embarrassing. So there was a lot to unpackage in that response. So I'll start kind of just at the top with the expanding of the receiving department. So it doesn't surprise me that with the mountain of orders that they had not checked in yet, that the first thing that they would try to do is try to get all those orders received in and in the books. That's something that Nat Turner had always talked about how he felt like what was one of the most unexcusable things was that you as a PSA customer sent your card off and you don't know if PSA has received it or not. And so the big push was to take some of that and was to take some of that newly acquired, capacity and use it on the receiving side. Bring those cards in and get them in the door so that people know, hey, we have your cards, right? And then the other piece there was that they were almost immediately eliminated. They laid them all off, or laid a good majority of them off. But they had already done the job of creating this big bottleneck of orders that were sitting in front of research and the research and department, right? But it's interesting that that's where the bottleneck is. I would have thought that the bottleneck would be in grading. Now I don't know if research is part of grading. I don't know what, let's see here. Okay, so delivery, shipping and preparation, the delivery, the arrival, order entry, the sticker, and assign an order number and replace your personal information, thus removing the potential bias for the grading process. The order sticker, order ID stickers with unique certification numbers are placed in each card saver in the order and in the research department. So this is where they're, in the grand scheme of things, this is where they're currently backlogged, according to that response. So, you know, with all this going on, they received in a ton of orders and everything's kind of sitting in backlog. And the bottleneck is in research. So rather than hire more researchers, they closed the service levels, jacked up the price, try to lessen the flow, and then they ended up laying off a lot of the receiving department. So all those people that brought in all those orders or brought in all those boxes, opened them up, received them, they ended up letting them all go. And I think I talked about that a couple of times, which is something that I was kind of not really concerned. I mean, yeah, kind of concerned about, because it's like, you know, if you receive in all these people, but I would have at least thought that, you know, they have this group of people there that are, yeah, they're receivers, but that's still a group of people that you've already hired and onboarded. Why not try to see if some of those people would be interested in becoming researchers and ultimately bring them through the process of making them into research people or potentially making them into graders? Because the thing about bottlenecks is that they're going to follow, you know, as you try to open up your capacity in each step of your process. If you don't prime the next process for the additional capacity, then you're just going to create the next bottleneck and the next bottleneck and the next bottleneck, right? So what's interesting there is that they laid everybody off like that. And this guy or girl is absolutely right, is that, you know, once they get to a point to where they open things back up, because as I'm sure several of you are just kind of waiting in the wings to send your cards off, if they were to open up right now, there's nobody there to receive in your cards. You're just going to be in the same spot again where you ship your cards off and it's not months until you see them received in the system. So that's interesting too. You know, this person also said, you know, that he or she feels like the people at the top are kind of running things into the ground, which, you know, this is something that kind of we've been talking about, but not really ever been, you know, not really verified. But it's just really interesting to see somebody that's already been at PSA or that was at PSA having that. Sorry, that was an alarm there. Having that same reaction or that same idea to what's going on in a company that they were working for or that they currently work at. So again, I just wanted to make this kind of quick video because I felt like it was interesting enough, a point, some of the things that they said. And as I scanned through the AMA, there really wasn't a whole lot else on there that they talked about. A lot of people asked a lot of really good questions, but this person only picked a handful of questions to answer. Let me see. I wonder if there's yeah, it's still here. This is still here. Oh, it's still here. So that's cool. So there's another one. Yeah, it seems like it's still kind of the same answers, but I'll link it. I'll link it in the description if you guys want to go and check out the link to it yourself. I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on some of the highlights, if you want to call them, of the actual AMA as I was reading through it. You know, you guys tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about Nat's tweet today. I thought that was hilariously, you know, just, I don't know, man, delusional almost. Like, it's like, you know, like one fat person calling another fat person fat. Like, oh man, he's so fat. You know, it's like, Really, dude? Like calling them lazy and complacent, and I don't know, man. It really makes me wonder kind of what what these people are thinking. Not particularly. Um, and it just kind of further iterates like some of my issues with PSA, that they, I don't know that they think that they're doing that bad of a job, which I mean, those of us that have been waiting for our cards for almost a year now know that they have been. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that. Again, leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about Nat's tweet. Tell me what you think about the AMA. I'll post a link in the description so you guys can go check it out. And if you see anything else that I may have missed that you think is of note, you can always reach out to me on Instagram. Several of you are reaching out to me on Instagram. Several of you are reaching out to me on email, which is also linked in the description. And then also, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, there's a bunch of you that have been joining there recently. A lot of interaction there too. So those are just a couple ways you can reach me. So hit me up if there's anything on there that you saw that you also thought was interesting. And we'll catch up there. I'll interact with you guys in between videos. Usually Instagram and Facebook groups the best way. So join on those. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.